one of the things I said to people who look like me, right, to black people, is I said, like, you guys know that the person who brought the concept of vaccination to this country was an African slave, right? And the story, it's the story of Wanzimus, right? And it was during smallpox. And Wanzimus was a slave of one of the guys who was involved. And he was like, hey, bro, like, in Africa, what we did was we popped a little pustule and we put that in cuts on people. And what we noticed is, yeah, some people, they died, but most people lived and they did fine. And the guy was like, wait, what? You did what? And that's where the concept of exposure, a small exposure to an organism, led to, the immune system being able to recognize the virus and be able to handle the presence of it very organized, right? And so that way the people didn't die. And so that's what they did. Then they started inoculating folks, and they noticed, oh my God, the folks that we inoculated with the pustule, less people died than would have died of smallpox. In the 1800s, there were two people kind of battling for the prominent scientific role in, like, France. It was like Louis Pasteur, who is like the godfather of germ theory, and Antoine Béchamp. They were both very smart scientists. Louis Pasteur said, hey, listen, man, there's these organisms, these microorganisms, bacteria. They're the things that are causing disease in human beings. And Béchamp said, oh, no, hell no, bro. Like, you're wrong. It's all about, like, your blood and your balance and your fluid. And if your balance is off, then those organisms can live, right? And so those were the two camps, right, in the 1800s. And then obviously Louis Pasteur's camp. And once we had, once we discovered, the electron microscope and could actually see the organisms and see the inflammatory response, we're like, oh yeah, okay, Pasteur was right. So that's how we treat medicine, right? But if you're a Béchamp fan, you don't believe in germ theory. And so turns out the secretary of HHS is a Béchamp fan, and that's what he's written about many, many times. And that's why he has this propensity to be against vaccination in general. But whatever, that's besides the point. But I think individuals need to understand that these concepts have been studied historically. We've looked into this. None of this is new. It's not made up.
I just wanted to follow up with what you were saying about the measles vaccine and giving information and then letting folks make their choice, which I think is very, very important. I think one of the differences in public health is the choice that you make. What impact is that having on the rest of the community? And as a public health official, like, I'm actually responsible for everybody. So some folks that have gotten measles is because they're too young to be vaccinated. So they're like 11 months old, they're in a health clinic, somebody with measles comes in and then infects that person. And so that's another part of public health that we have to, navigate, which is still a lot of relationships and communications and what have you. But it can be really tough to say, like, yes, this is your choice, but, are we going to have to limit where you're able to go because somebody else could become infected who can't? Either they're immunosuppressed, they're too young, or have an allergy to something, and they're not able to be vaccinated. Yeah.
Wow. So that's like part of your job. You got to narrow down who is infected, why they're infected, and then sometimes you got to give bad news, like, hey, you can't go to 2nd Street in Long Beach because, like, you about to infect everybody, like, we can't have.
Yeah, that's actually a big part of my job. It's called quarantine and isolation. So if you're somebody who's been exposed, you have to we have to say, like, are you immunized to measles? You have to prove it, and if not, you have to stay in your house, and it can be up to 21 days where you're not able to work, school, what have you.
And if they leave their house, what happens? They get arrested?
Well, we try not to do that. Like, you are defying an order. Sure. And so, we try to work with you. Like, we try to, what's the issue, and try to, again, that's where, like, oh, you don't have food. We try to give food, try to help you out, sign disability paperwork so that you can, do that. The important thing is that we are stressing the importance of not being out infecting other people, just because, measles in particular is so contagious.